Yo, what's up everybody? This is Dan Giffin. I'm going to show you today how I use the drum bus in Ableton Live to get some fat, punchy sounds out of your drums, because that's always a good day. So I've got this drum rack here. I got some lo-fi stuff going on. Let me just play it for you real quick and I'll slap a drum bus on here and show you how to kind of tighten up the drums and shape the sound. So a lot of times I'll actually build out like a drum rack. I would encourage you to build a big drum rack of all your favorite sounds, save that into your collections or your user library, and then that way you can kind of pull it out and start producing really fast. It's definitely good to save all your presets, that way you can pull it out and have it ready to go anytime you want. But I'm going to grab the drum rack, the drum bus. I'll throw that drum bus behind this drum rack, and immediately it automatically sets the drive to 20, and that's kind of going to add some more of the input gain right here, so it's going to automatically make it louder the more you turn it up. I usually dial that back somewhere between like 12 and 14%. Then down here below is going to be dealing a lot with how hard of that compression is going to hit if you have compression on, and how hard that drive is going to be hitting with that compression. So when you turn on the compressor, it's automatically going to boost the input as well. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll turn down the output before I turn on the compressor, and then you can trim the input gain a little bit there. So that drum bus isn't going to be slamming those drums super hard and make it super loud and make your ears bleed. So I usually just hit play, and then once I do that, I'll turn the drum bus on and off so I can actually set the volume so that it was where it was at before, and that way you can really tell what the drum bus is doing as far as shaping the tone of the drums. So yeah, it's about right. So you can see right here where it says bass, that's the input that's hitting in there. You can actually adjust the dry wet signal, which I'll do at the very end. We can kind of blend in the drum bus so we can kind of have like this gritty sound and kind of shape it with how much of that drum bus is actually working with the dry signal. Another thing we have over here is crunch, so that's going to add a lot of grit to the drums. So let's listen to that. It can be kind of cool to kind of drive that a little harder. Maybe turn down the input trim a little bit more. Turn down the output a little bit so we're balancing that volume again. Maybe turn down the crunch. Dampen is a low pass filter, so you can really turn down the drums and shape it. As you turn up the crunch, sometimes it's going to make it really bright and distorted in the high end, especially when you're drum bussing all these samples together. Like the hi-hats and some things might be a little too bright, so it's kind of nice to tame those down a little bit with this damp thing. A lot of times I see people like soloing the drums as they like use the drum bus and shape the drums. I think it's definitely pro tip to be able to mix your drums and anything you're doing like this in context of the whole song. So I encourage anybody, as you're mixing and like messing with drum bus and sound shaping, like always do it within the context of the whole song so that way you can really hear what's going on. I hear that with a lot of new producers. They're like in solo land soloing everything, and then when they play it with the rest of the tracks, it sounds way different. So then over here we've got transients. So the transients, if you boost the transients, that's the initial punch, the initial attack of the drums. So if you turn that up, you can get it to like have almost more of a clipping type of sound where it's more snappy, especially with like the snare and things like that. So you can go overboard, or you could reduce those transients, which can be cool just for like a special sound design shaping. But usually I'll boost the transients just a tiny bit, and you can really go crazy with that and hear what it's doing. But that transient can make the kick drum punch a little harder, can make the snare snap a little harder. So I usually boost the transients a little bit. Then you have boom down here. So this is a fixed frequency. So however I dial in the frequency is when I turn up the boom, it's going to create basically an EQ notch. So what's really happening is you've got this really tight curve here, and this boom, as I turn this boom up, it's going to basically be doing this. It's going to be turning that up on whatever fixed frequency is set here for the hertz. That's just to give you a visual idea of what's happening here. One really fun tip is if you know the key of the song that it's in, this is A minor. then I can set the fixed frequency, because every frequency has a note locked into it. So if I wanted to dial this in down here, you can see which note. And so I'm looking at A right now. So I'll set this fixed frequency at A. If I turn up the boom, it's going to add a little bit of a bump in the low end and can make my kick sound a little more thumpy, if that's like a real word. Gives a more of a thump to the low end of the kick. So you can go overboard with that, but you can kind of hear what's going on here. And if you wanted to, you can actually turn like a regular kick into an 808. So it's like a really big boomy sounding kick if it's like hip hop, or that's the kind of style you're going for. And then you can pull back the decay. So as you add boom, maybe that boom is going to be sustaining or decaying too long, and it kind of like is too long for the speed of the rhythm, and it doesn't sound as tight anymore. So you can, once you turn up that boom a little bit, I'll turn up to like maybe 20%, and then I'll pull back that decay. And this is where it's okay to solo, because I really want to hear the timing of that kick. I'll pull back the decay. And then I'm just doing something really subtle here. I'm not trying to do a crazy effect. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll just adjust the dry wet. So let's turn it all the way down to 0, and then I'll slowly turn it up until I think it sounds really good with the rest of the tracks. And then we've got the drum bus dialed in, and it usually makes the drums sound a little more crispy and fat and just overall awesome. So let's listen before and after. Even though it's really subtle, I didn't do anything really crazy. It kind of gives the drums a little more of a punch, a little bit of a fatness, and drum bus is always a win. So throw that on your tracks. It's a good day. I'm Dan Giffin. I'll see you next time.
Sound of this funky sound.
Yeah.